Hi everyone, welcome to Wedding Bells Love Unveiled. Today on the podcast we have an amazing videographer, James, with us, and you are LambHatton Videography.
I am indeed.
Yeah, perfect. So James, what made you really want to get into wedding videography?
Well, it was a situation where I stumbled into it more than anything, and I'll name drop a few people, obviously for a starter. But Tom, the prop guy,
Oh yeah.
I kind of did a job for him probably about 2022, something like that.
Yeah.
And this is because I do videography on the side anyway. I attended one of his evenings where he was obviously doing what Tom does because he's very good at what he does, and videoed him and provided a video for him. And then somewhere along the line, he kind of said, "Did you not consider doing this like as your own thing and getting into the industry?" So, well, 3 years later, I'm kind of like, I started last year, and very, very early days still in the business itself and just trying to get things, learning a lot, because, it's a business itself. But, it's been an interesting thing to suddenly jump into. And it's very much something that I wanted to do as like, it's my ownership. It's something independent for me. And I'm a big advocate for kind of learning things and a bit of your, self-improvement. And I think with a business, something that you're doing yourself, you're putting yourself into those positions where you have to learn on the spot and go challenge yourself. What can you do? So that's one of my main reasons for starting in the wedding industry. Yeah, I'm a videographer, by the way. Just want to let everyone know.
So, James, why do you think that everybody should have a wedding videographer on the day?
I would say the main thing is that there'll become a time when you've experienced that entirety of the day. And I'm not saying that everyone will, have a drink on the day and potentially forget a lot of what happened on it, but clearly near the end of the evening, it will become a little bit more fuzzy. But I also think it's quite valuable for people to see that moment in time and see family members that, probably in a more maudlin way, and it's not the greatest way to say it, but you will really cherish their moments with them. And you've got something that you can archive for your life and look back on forever, basically. And it's nice to see in that motion, not necessarily, and no disrespect to photographers, but you're seeing potentially their movement, what they're saying, the audio recording, which will most likely hit in a different way than what you expect when you look back on it a lot more. And I think it's it's very much you invest in your memories a lot more, if that makes sense. So, I'd say it's definitely a value proposition that you should definitely consider on the day.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of a wedding videographer. I've seen so many of our brides, and this was a few years ago, we had a bride called Amelia, and over the top of her wedding video was their vows. And I was watching this and I was crying. I was like, I didn't even go to this wedding. I knew this bride for a few months, but I was in tears because it was just such a beautiful moment that you can like see the whole wedding in just a few minutes.
I've been in a situation where somebody was doing their speech, and it was actually one of my first wedding gigs that I did. And the speech was so compelling. This person was very, very good at talking, put it this way. And I was actually working on the job with my dad at the same time because he was helping as second shooter.
Okay.
And the way that he delivered his speech, I was like, it's making me choke up a little bit. He was crying. Everyone was crying in the room. We were all crying. And, well, luckily enough, it's all on video as well. So, but it's them moments where that person, because they're in that moment, they're experiencing it, but they're not seeing it through the eyes of everyone else. And when you get it on a video, that's when you can experience it through the eyes of everyone else. And you'll obviously see bits where, I didn't recognise that. I didn't see that. I wasn't there on that
and you've
part of the
captured
day.
those
And you've
little
captured
moments.
it, and there's all these little interesting things that do happen on the day. And the video will obviously record that for you.
Yeah.
And audio is a massive one. You certainly need to get that element in the video, and because that just makes it just totally different from a still image.
Yeah, of course.
So the reason why we moved on from like films and stuff like that, really, otherwise we'd still be in Charlie Chaplin days.
Well, yeah, of course. Okay, so from a wedding videographer's point of view, what are some tips that you would give couples on how to make sure that they get the best video footage for their day?
I would say one of the best ways is collaborating as much as possible with the videographer. So being quite transparent with what you require on the day, and obviously letting the videographer say their piece as well, because not everything is possible on the day.
Yeah.
You know, it's better to organise and plan for what the day will outlay.
Yeah.
And that's not saying, obviously, that the day is going to go strictly to the format that you create
Yeah.
for them. But if they're on the same page as the videographer and you're able to communicate with them quite effectively,
Yeah.
that will be one of the best things that you can do for them on the
Amazing.
day. Another thing I would say is encourage your videographer to collaborate with all of your vendors really on the
Okay.
day as well. So your main one, obviously, for a videographer would be a photographer.
Yeah.
You want them to come together as a collaborative piece, and they won't trip on each
Yeah.
other's toes throughout the day and stuff like that. And if that is the kind of team, because it's a team really on the day.
Yeah.
It's what the bride and groom are forming. They're forming a team that you're hoping that they all, you know, your goalie, your striker, you're that kind of
Yeah.
thing, and they can all work in tandem together, and they've got a great relationship. That is fantastic for the day, really, and it certainly helps out me when
Yeah.
photographers don't get in a shot.
Yeah, when you're like working together rather than like against each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, every gig that I've had so far, I've had some fantastic photographers that have worked with me. And, you know, it's very much a case of, well, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Are you going to be there? Have you managed to get the shot that you need to get and stuff like that? So, yeah, it's if you can have that open conversation with your photographer that you're working on in the day, yeah, it's fantastic, really.
It's
So
like a
that
match
would be
made
the
for
main one.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say like the behind the scenes kind of work as a videographer would be?
It's very much you've got a period, let's say, if we want to talk from the beginning of where you meet your client all the way to the wedding day, there could be a massive chasm of space, of time, really, of organising. So, you know, you're in a lot of conversations with them. I do a consultation with them beforehand to outlay what the day will be like. And then I'll go and meet up with them at some point, like a bit of an interval before their wedding day. That gives me a chance really to get to know them more on a personal level.
Yeah, so they're a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, set the pace with them. They know what I'm like, you know, and what they expect of the day and stuff like that. But I will say that the majority of the behind the scenes is, it can be stressful, put it that way. It's a lot of planning in the sense of, well, how am I going to get to this area, or how am I going to do this, and what have I got to think about in terms of lighting? So I would have pre-planned a lot of that already. But even to the point where you're trying to get to venues and going from reception to, going from ceremony to reception, you're thinking stuff like, well, what if I get a flat tire? You know, am I going to be there? Or are they going to be without the videographer for the day? So you've got to mitigate for all these different circumstances. So the behind the scenes is very much a case of you are trying to limit as much potential damage that could happen and taking the stress away from the couple so that they don't have to think about that, thinking about where's he going to be, what's he going to be doing and stuff like that. And then once you've delivered your video for the day, the editing then takes up a vast amount of time after that. And I provide a 1 minute reel for them in the first 2 weeks of their wedding day, because obviously I like to give them something that they can actively use on their social media whilst the enthusiasm's still there. That's another element of it as well. That's another planning side where you have a certain degree of editing that you know works for certain bits, and then you split up your workflow in almost like a template format, but it works in a way that helps with the workflow to make sure that the final product gets out in a timely manner. And you've kind of got to come up with all that structure yourself, really, so that it works and you're not spending 8 months coming up with a video, basically. So, it's main highlight, quite stressful.
So what would you say that your most favourite thing has been that you've captured so far?
There's quite a few things at certain parts of the day. I think really there's a point where, especially when you get to the reception, as a videographer, you can kind of relax a little bit. You know, you're at base now. You know, you don't have to keep travelling or running around and doing stuff. You know what the setup is going to be for the rest of the evening, really. And I kind of do go back to an earlier point that I mentioned before, and it was the speeches of the first wedding that I did, and it was quite a religious wedding. But I think it was just the way that it was delivered, really, in terms of who was in the room and what it meant to this couple. It stood out to me just from that point of view, and And this goes back to why you would want a video for your
Yeah.
wedding, really, is because you can refer back to that and go, that was a really powerful moment. And if I could share it for people, I would, but I can't because it's the clients. You can see it all on my website, by the way. But yeah, that's a piece that really, really stuck out to me because, you know, there was either a true and genuine love between these two people,
Yeah.
and you were playing a part of that story with
Yeah.
them just by being there on the day and collaborating and being a part of their day. It made me really appreciate the fact that you're a part of this. This is great. You're delivering
Yeah.
something which is really meaningful for them. Be proud of it. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it was that quiet moment, listening to them speeches,
Yeah.
I'm there just with my camera, soaking it all in, and letting everyone else soak it all in. And yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
Absolutely a highlight. There are other weddings, by the way, that are fantastic, and they've been highlights as well. But that is my main one.
Yeah,
I'd
like
say.
one that's like really touched you when you've done it.
Yeah, really, it was insanely good, that one. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on today, James. We've had such a nice time talking to you about everything video related. So if you are looking for a videographer, make sure that you do go and follow James at LambHatton Video. And you have just changed over your profile picture, so it's now your face.
It is now my face. It's not my logo at the moment. So yes, if I look 12 years old, don't mention anything in my DMs.
But make sure that you give him a follow, and it's been absolutely amazing having you today.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's okay.